Okay, so now that we know all about mitosis, the next step is to learn about meiosis. So, chapter 13 is about meiosis and reproduction, sexual life cycle of a cell. Weird. Okay. So, a couple of words that you should know what they mean is, well, there's a really good sentence in your textbook that says, most people who send out birth announcements mention the sex of their baby, but they don't feel the need to specify that their offspring is a human being. I suppose that that's true, and the reason for that is because reproduction makes the same kind of living thing as it came from. So that's important to know. And we're going to talk about why that is. So why humans make humans and why humans don't make kangaroos. Okay, that's important. So genetics is the study, the scientific study of heredity and variation. So how these things get passed on. So why you look like your parents in the sense that you're both humans, but why maybe you don't look exactly like your parents. So similarities and differences, heredity and variation. While heredity is the transmission of traits from one generation to the next. So both of my parents have blue eyes, so I have blue eyes. Also, both my parents are humans, so I am a human. But variation is the differences that occur during replication, because I do not look exactly like either of my parents, so there is variation. So the reason that we get traits from our parents is that we inherit chromosomes from them. So in a literal sense, children do not inherit particular physical traits from their parents. So my mom didn't actually give me her hair, but she gave me chromosomes that tell my body to make hair that looks like my mom's. So I actually get the genes, not the actual physical traits. She didn't give me her hair. Like when I was a baby, she didn't like cut off her hair and glue it on my head, right? That would be weird. Instead, my body knows how to make that hair because she gave me those genes. So a gene, by definition, is, I wrote this down. Oh, hereditary units. That's what a gene is. So genes are the units of heredity and are made up of segments of DNA. So it's actually a bunch of repeating DNA nucleotides that tell your body what protein to make. And they're passed down from generation to generation through reproductive cells, which are called gametes. These are different than somatic cells, which are all the other cells in your body. The particular reproductive cells are called gametes, and they are sperm and egg cells. And each of these genes has a very particular location on each chromosome. So, for example, I could say that the gene for hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen in your blood, is located on the top right end of the 15th chromosome. Just made that up, but that would be the locus of that gene. So they're located in very specific locations on your DNA. And most of our DNA is packaged into chromosomes, which we saw a little bit during mitosis, and now we're going to talk even more about what they are. So there's two kinds of reproduction. There's sexual and asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is when a single cell or a single individual replicates itself and makes two new daughters, or two new offspring, or a single offspring. And these are done without the fusion of gametes. So there is no exchange of DNA. You will be a clone of your parent because you have its exact same DNA. There's no mixture of two parents' DNA. This is different than sexual reproduction, which is when there is mixing of gametes. So they come from two parents and their chromosomes are mixed, which is why there is variation. So there's no variation in asexual reproduction, but there is variation in sexual reproduction. For example, so not only cells do asexual reproduction, all of your cells do asexual reproduction during mitosis, but they are not an individual organism, they are just a cell. But there are certain things like this hydra right here, which this is the parent, this thing right here, and then this little guy is actually a bud just growing off of that. So that is an example of asexual reproduction. There were not two parents, there was just one. So this bud is going to be exactly the same as this parent. That's different than, oh, just kidding. So this circle of redwoods were reproduced asexually as well. So they are all genetically identical to each other. So that's 13.1. 13.2 talks about fertilization and meiosis alternate in sexual life cycles. So life cycle is how you go from being born to dying, right? And we know our life cycle. We start off, well, let's talk about chromosomes first. So our somatic cells, all the cells inside of our bodies except for our gametes, our sperm and our egg cells, have 23 pairs of chromosomes. This is very unique to humans. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So that means there's 23 different kinds of chromosomes, and we all have 2 of them. And we can actually identify what these chromosomes look like based on how long they are, where their centromeres are, and different bands of different information. And so a karyotype is when we take these and we look at them in a picture and we identify which ones are which. So this right here would be a karyotype. You can see all 23 chromosomes laid out, and you can actually see the chromosomes themselves. Then there's 2 chromosomes in each pair, right? So I said there were 23 pairs of chromosomes, and there's 2 of them, and those are called homologous pairs. Remember that homo means the same. Homologous means basically the same. Homologous pairs have the same information as each other. So chromosomes in a homologous pair are the same length and shape and carry the same genes controlling the same inherited characteristics. So let's look at this. So let's say that right here on chromosome 2 is the gene for eye color, and this one is from my mom. Whereas over here, this one's from my dad, but this gene for eye color is going to be in exactly the same spot. Because the reason that you have 2 sets of each of them is you got one from mom and one from dad. Okay? So we'll talk about how they got there, but just know that the reason you have 46 chromosomes when there's only 23 kinds of chromosomes is because you got 23 from your mom and 23 from your dad, and they are the same. So you got 2 of chromosome 1, 1 from mom, 1 from dad, 2 of chromosome 2, 1 from mom, 1 from dad, etc., etc. Except for one specific example, which is the sex chromosomes. So those are chromosomes X and chromosome Y. If you are female, you are XX. You have 2 copies of chromosome X. So you actually do have a homologous pair there, but if you are male, you have 1 X and 1 Y. So there's not a homologous pair because they're actually different. And the other 22 pairs that we call, or 22 pairs are called autosomes. So X and Y are the sex chromosomes. Chromosomes 1 through 22 are the autosomes. And so if you have 2 X's, if you're female, those 2 X's contain the same sort of information, right, because they're homologous pairs. But the X and the Y chromosomes do not contain the exact same information. Some of it is the same, but most of it is different, which is why men and women are different from each other. So I said this, each pair of homologous pairs contains 1 chromosome from each parent. That's why there's 23 kinds and you have 46 altogether. And the 46 chromosomes in a human somatic cell are 2 sets of 23, 1 from mom and 1 from dad, like I said. So all of your somatic cells have 2 sets of each chromosome, so we call those diploid, di meaning 2, ploid meaning number of chromosomes. So you have double the number of chromosomes, and we will call that 2N. So N means the number of chromosomes in any given species. In humans, it's 23. So if you're diploid, you are 2N, 2 times 23, you have 46 chromosomes inside of your cells. For humans, like I said, the diploid number is 46. 2N equals 46 because N equals 23. In a cell that has gone through S phase, so we've done DNA synthesis, we're past S phase, each chromosome is replicated. So now you have double the genetic material, but you still have 46 chromosomes. Because rather than being 1 sister chromatid, now you are 2 sister chromatids. So this is 1 chromosome after replication, this is 1 chromosome before replication. So you don't double your number of chromosomes, you just double your number of genetic material. So here we go. So this is the diploid number for this species is 6 because the number of chromosomes is 3. So this is a normal cell. There are 6 chromosomes in it, but 3 different kinds. So you can see there's one that's we'll call chromosome 1, this little baby one, chromosome 2, this middle one, and chromosome 3, this bigger one. You have 2 copies of each of them. The red ones came from mom, the blue ones came from dad. So you can see right here when we're looking at this blue one, this is 1 chromosome, but you can tell replication has already happened because there are 2 sister chromatids as part of that 1 chromosome. And then right here, these 2 guys, these are homologous pairs. Okay? They are the same, they're the same chromosome, but 1 came from mom and 1 came from dad. They're homologous because they contain the same information. Okay? That chromosome from mom has the same information as the chromosome from dad. Those are homologous pairs. This is different than your gametes, your sperm or egg cells that are haploid. They only contain 1 copy of each chromosome. For humans, our haploid number is 23, N equals 23. And so each of these gametes has 22 regular chromosomes and 1 sex chromosome. So in an egg, in an unfertilized egg, the sex chromosome is always going to be X because women make eggs and we only have X chromosomes. Whereas in a sperm cell, it could be X or Y. So gentlemen, when you have children, it is your reproductive cells that determine whether or not your child would be female or male, because you can give it an X or a Y. So when it comes time that a sperm cell might meet an egg cell, this is called fertilization. This is when the gametes fuse, when the sperm and the egg meet and form a zygote. That is what a fertilized egg is called. So after fertilization, after the sperm and the egg cell meet, we have what's called a zygote. The sperm cell had 23 chromosomes. It was haploid. It had 1 copy of each. The egg cell had 23 chromosomes. It was haploid, 1 copy of each. They fused during fertilization. Now their offspring has 46 chromosomes. They are now diploid. They got 1 copy from dad, 1 copy from mom. Now they have 2 copies of each chromosome. Now the zygote is going to continue dividing by mitosis, and each of the cells in the rest of its life will have 46 chromosomes. When a human being or any animal reaches sexual maturity, the ovaries start making egg cells and the testes start making sperm cells. These are haploid gamete reproductive cells. They only have 1 copy of each chromosome. Now we know we can't do mitosis to make these because mitosis gives genetically identical cells, so we can't suddenly have half of the chromosomes. We know that each daughter cell in mitosis has a full 46 chromosomes, so we use a different process called meiosis. And meiosis results in 1 set of chromosomes for each gamete. So it makes haploid daughter cells, different than mitosis's diploid daughter cells. So here's the life cycle of a human. This is where your life begins, when the sperm and the egg meet. You are now 2N46 because you are a human. You grow into an adult, whether you be male or female. Still, as an adult, all of the somatic cells inside your body are 2N equals 46. They are diploid. But then there are special cells inside your body which are made in your testes or in your ovaries that don't do mitosis, they do meiosis. And because of that, then they change from being diploid to being haploid, and we get egg and sperm cells. Then this haploid egg meets with the haploid sperm. We get N plus N, and we get to be 2N again, and it all happens all over again. So inside of our animal cells, the only haploid cells are gametes. They are made by mitosis and do not ever divide again unless they get fertilized. But then once they get fertilized, we switch back to mitosis. Plants do something different and kind of silly called alternation of generations, which is where there's actually a diploid life stage, just like animals have, but they also have a haploid multicellular stage, which animals do not have. The diploid organism is called the sporophyte, and it makes haploid spores by meiosis. So just go ahead and look at this figure in your textbook. Take a look at it. It's a little bit complicated, but basically, rather than just having 1 cell be haploid like we do, they actually have a life stage that is haploid, where they live with only 1 set of chromosomes and are multicellular. So this guy would be haploid, which is different than animals. We can skip the rest of the life cycles. Read it in your textbook. That's all.